As we come back for this Night on Your Side special report, here's another hotline for anyone struggling with heroin here in the Tri-State. This number is actually for the Cincinnati area, the Cincinnati hotline there, 513-281-7422. Please call out if you're having issues with addiction tonight. Some call it a lifesaver here. Others claim it is an enabler. We're talking about Narcan, which is credited with saving lives during this rash of heroin overdoses. 9 on Your Side's Tom McKee samples the debate from both sides of the issue.
The majority of people I spoke with today say Narcan is the best option right now to handle overdoses. But those in law enforcement are saying there are some real needs ahead, like closing some gaps in the law and more funding. When life squads make overdose runs, they normally revive the victim with Narcan and transport to a hospital. That's often frustrating for fire personnel.
Sometimes it's the same patients that we might have seen last week. Sometimes it's the same patient you saw in the morning.
But do those revivals enable users to keep injecting heroin? Mary Haig, President and CEO of Prevention First, says no.
The research does demonstrate that Narcan availability does not increase opiate use or heroin use.
The debate is a non-issue for Chief Tom Sinan of the Hamilton County Heroin Task Force. He says using Narcan saves lives.
I think people would have a different viewpoint if they were the ones standing over the body, knowing that that's somebody's mother, father, son, daughter, brother, sister.
And the chief has an idea he'd like to see put into use.
Someone overdoses on opiate, we use Narcan. We don't take them to jail, we take them to a treatment facility, and they're put in that treatment facility.
We can expect more out-of-the-box thinking as this community unites to try and solve this massive problem. Tom McKee, Not on Your Side, downtown.
If you ask yourself, are doctors rethinking how they prescribe opioids for pain? Well, you're not alone. And the answer is yes. They have, in fact. UC Health's Dr. Nancy Elder spoke to 9 on Your Side reporter Jay Warren today to talk about their efforts to retrain doctors to prescribe fewer opioids, that is. But she says patients are also in need of retraining because they often demand opioid pain medication because they won't take anything else. Elder says that as a society, we are right in the midst of the shift of reducing the amount of opioids that are prescribed.
We are not just beginning it. We are in the middle of it. Especially in our region, we've been aware of this opioid epidemic for a decade. Even before the state legislature and the governor got involved and made new rules and regulations for physicians to prescribe, doctors were already aware of, well, I have too many patients on opioids.
The process isn't happening overnight, though, and doctors are looking at cutting back on prescriptions but not eliminating them altogether. And we want to bring in two more of our panelists right now. Joining me right now, the Cincinnati Health Department Interim Health Commissioner, Dr. Odell Owens, and Addiction Specialist, Dr. Clifford Kabansag. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
This is a major issue, as we know. It's an epidemic here in the Tri-State. We just came out of a story there talking about Narcan, and there was a big debate on whether Narcan is the solution. What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I think it's no debate. Narcan's a lifesaver. And I think the people of Cincinnati first should really praise our first responders. It's incredible. We have over 70 overdoses, only 3 or 4 deaths. They did a great job. You don't have any other choice. I walked down the street about a month ago and saw a man on the street who I thought surely was dead. I touched him. He felt cold. He wasn't moving. And the fire department came in, gave him a shot, and woke him up. It is a lifesaver. But it is an opportunity to get that person off the street, hopefully into the emergency room and then into treatment. But to want to hold back on the Narcan sets an enabler, yes, there's always going to be bad characters who are going to feel, well, I'm invincible, I can go ahead and shoot up and not worry about it, you're going to bring it back to life. Right. The problem is, you know, a year ago we were talking about a shot of Narcan. Today we're talking about 2 or 3 doses. So there really are, as he said earlier, playing Russian roulette.
Doctor?
You know, frankly, the fact that this is even a question it's offensive to me. And again, it has to do with the stigma that we hold patients with substance use disorders at a different standard. Right. And what I mean by that is people are admitted to the ICU all the time for COPD. We don't not treat them because they're going to go out and smoke again. So the idea of enabling use, it's preposterous. And you know, another way of saying it, patients who are dead typically don't recover. Now, I think our efforts are really, we're concentrating on the terminal side. And what's troubling to me is that I think a whole lot more could be done if we put our efforts elsewhere, more upstream.
Right. We have a question actually from a viewer. Someone in recovery called in to ask what active addict is going to take the time to go get insurance or to get treatment.
Exactly. Another reason that this is such a problem is, we are creatures of expediency. There are so many barriers to receiving adequate treatment.
There's a lack of beds in so many of these treatment facilities as well.
So there's so many barriers in addition to the lack of services. So I'm only going to do what's more expedient. I can get heroin delivered to me.
Right.
That sure beats falling in line and showing up at a clinic at 6 o'clock in the morning and hoping to get in. What's going on should not come as a surprise. As long as obtaining treatment is more difficult than using, we are going to have this problem.
Because when addicts go to these facilities and they say there's a 2 or 3 week waiting period, they can go down to the street and become happy again in their world because they're sick when they wake up and they need that hit. They go down and they become normal, quote, normal, by getting, a $10 or $15 hit of heroin instead of going into treatment.
Absolutely, and that hit starts, if you give someone a shot of Narcan or nasally, they wake up oftentimes fighting you because you just broke their high. They wake up angry. And that's why a lot of officers won't necessarily give the full dose, get them halfway back so they can get them to the emergency room so they can't turn down the ride to the emergency room, which is the first step, hopefully, in getting them into some treatment.
Well, I know this is a much bigger conversation that needs to continue, and I appreciate you both being here tonight. We are going to continue this conversation here on 9 on Your Side for sure. We will be right back in just a few minutes. And don't forget, there are resources for anyone struggling with heroin right now on WCPO.com/heroin. You can find locations in the Tri-State that specialize in heroin addiction treatment.